Okay, so just to wrap things up, we have created a logic model. We've developed objectives and indicators. We have chosen one or several evaluation designs. We have determined what kind of methods we're going to use, whether those are surveys or non-surveys. And we're looking now to kind of package it all up into one single evaluation plan, which we can then use as a blueprint moving forward. So why do we do this? Why do we put everything together into kind of one final document? Well, it helps us to provide background and context to the program. So it's going to include things like our logic model and some narrative and a descriptive of the issue and the program itself. It really helps us to organize our approach and methods. Getting it all on paper and getting it all agreed upon helps to make sure that everybody's on the same page. That involves your team, but as well as any other stakeholders. So leadership, your funders, your audience, anybody who needs to be involved are able to take a look at this document and know what it is that you're doing. And then finally, it's often required for proposals, right? So if you apply for a grant from the USDA or NIH or any of those large federal agencies, or anybody of any size, they're going to ask for this as part of your proposal. So there's a lot of different formats, and none of them are really better than others, but there are some common components that any sort of evaluation plan really should have. The first is obviously the object of the evaluation. So, what are you doing? What are you looking to evaluate? The purpose of your program and your description. The logic model itself, which is going to obviously kind of dictate the rest of the documents after this. Why you've chosen your design, why you've chosen your methods. Why did you choose to do informative interviews and some games and activities and a comparison group survey? Like, why did you decide on those approaches? Who is the audience or audiences that you'll be using your evaluation with? Once you've collected all the data and summarized it and created a report, what's your plan to share that information? Does it go just up the chain to leadership? Does it go out in your community to your partners and your stakeholders? And then finally, what's needed to pull it off, right? What's the timeline? Who's doing what? What are the resources? This is a really key part of the entire process. It's not enough just to put this together, but you have to sort of figure out how it's going to roll out. All right. And then finally, things like your evaluation objectives and indicators. So this is kind of the meat of the whole thing, right? So what is it that you're going to be looking to measure? What are your indicators of success? And really, how are you going to do all this stuff? This is often done in a table, frankly, very much like the logic model. It's just easier to lay it out in table format. So things to include are obviously the data needed to answer the question. So what are the actual metrics that you're looking to collect? The source of the data. Is it from observation? Is it primary? Is it secondary? Where is it coming from? Is it from some survey analysis? How are you going to collect the data? What kind of methods are you using? What is your overall timeline? So are you going to be doing this early on and getting some data right off the bat to get some baseline stuff? Or are you going to do some post-program assessments in a year after this thing has run its course? What methods are you going to use to analyze the data? Again, you can get really good data analysis with very simple methods. So just things like frequency tables and basic descriptive statistics can show you a lot. If you want to do more advanced things, then by all means, that can be great as well. Or you can ask for some help to do some really nice biostats on what you're looking at. And then frankly, limitations. They always want to know your limitations. As great as your plan is going to be and as great as your program is going to be, having some limitations acknowledged is always an important step. So like I said, there's a lot of examples of this out there. There's a lot of different templates, but just to look at a couple of them to give you an idea of what we're talking about. So here is some stuff that we just discussed in table form. So here is some short-term desired results. We are in a program with some youth, and they are learning some skills, right? Setting goals, making decisions, problem solving. Here we're looking at the source of the data. We're doing a pre-post program assessment using some common measures that have been established by an agency. We're also going to do some mid-year focus groups to engage youth in dialogue, right? When are we going to do these things? We're going to do them in the fall as a pre-test and in the spring as a post-test. Our focus groups, we're going to do them in January, February, because there's some gaps in the calendar that we can take advantage of. As far as our surveys go, we are going to collect those. Those are going to be spearheaded by our PIs and our evaluation specialist. They're going to work with each site to administer the surveys. Same thing with focus groups. You're going to develop a protocol. We know who's doing it. We know who's going to facilitate it and record responses. And then finally, the analysis. Descriptive statistics, pre-post responses, recorded audio being transcribed into text, using 3 coders to code things into nodes and themes. So again, it gets pretty detailed as far as what we're going to collect and who's going to do that work. Another example, much larger project, looking at health reform in Maryland. We're going to be doing some qualitative and some quantitative work. So the qualitative work is going to be structured observations by trained observers. We're going to be doing a pre-post paired assessment, and we're going to do a follow-up survey, maybe months or even years after the program happens. Why are we doing this? Looking to capture some concerns, capture some comments, measure knowledge, measure intent, gets the real point, the real purpose of why we're doing each of these methods. Focus groups. Again, you can see how detailed this is, right? 10 focus groups, 8 states, 8 participants each. We're looking at all these different things. We're doing focus groups, we're doing some pre-post stuff, and we're doing it to capture reactions, to measure knowledge, and measure intent to change behavior. So there are lots of examples of these things out there, but they all really kind of get to the same core, in that it's encouraging you to detail your process and detail your rationale in order to make sure that your evaluation plan goes according to how you intended it to.